Welcome to Behind the Curtain IMO. I'm Betsy Jordan. You know, it takes a great deal of courage, stamina, wisdom, and in our case, experience for President Biden and the Biden administration to keep us out of war as he has over his very short tenure as President of the United States. He's been instrumental in keeping us out of nuclear war. He's been instrumental in keeping our boys off the ground, boots on the ground. He does not like that, did not want that. And he has done his best to, in the midst of a very chaotic situation coming off of a pandemic, to rebuild our economy, to invest in our country in ways that mean that infrastructure reaches the furthest parts of our country. And in so doing, has provided generational possibilities for wealth among American families. Kamala is continuing that by also building the middle class, hitting harder on corporate price gouging, which has been astronomical, which began because of a supply chain issue born out of COVID. Now, this is not blaming or shaming or making excuses. This is saying this is the fact. These are the facts. This is what they've had to deal with. Now, also layer that for President Biden and the Biden-Harris administration with a guy that has been critical, nonstop, and wants to command the airways, who has been really, really disrespectful of the office of the presidency of the United States, interfering with the work of Congress. Trying to get his guys elected in 2022 is not something new, but the way he invested in them and then lost should have been a message to him and to his supporters that maybe it would be a good idea for him to back off after inciting an insurgency and threatening our government. When President Biden came out and said, my concern is that if he's elected, that it might be the end of our democracy. Because you see, there is a movement afoot to make sure that it is not one person, one vote, that it is not about the people of America, that it is all about the top 1%ers and how can we make this money and I believe I'm the one who should be telling you how to live your life. So what is at stake here is your very freedoms. If you don't look or talk or act the way that Donald Trump and Trump Republicans, I need to say it that way, want you to act and be and live, then they'll find a way for you not to have rights, even if you are a legal American citizen. They're going to manipulate the law. There's no respect for that. There's no respect for that. You can tell from someone who leaned on his 3 appointed, extremely right-winged Supreme Court justices to make sure that he had immunity from his 34 legal convictions. 34. And they included not just business fraud, but sexual assault. He's made light of that. And his decisions, even during COVID, were about campaigning. They weren't about leading. They weren't approaching the American people with compassion. They were approaching the American people with disdain. And, you know, I want to shoot the protesters in the legs, not trying to understand why are they protesting in the beginning, okay? I want you to remember that. And also, President Biden didn't court the press. The Biden-Harris administration was busy doing the work, being presidential, protecting our country, which they did. But they had to contend with an infrastructure that allowed for President Trump to have too much power when he was not president. And then he got immunity, which meant everything he did was okay. And I know with absolute certainty that he has given critical, confidential secrets, strategic secrets to Russia. You may not want to believe that, but it is also in everything he says. And his own security advisors are wondering at this weird relationship he has with Putin, because Putin is a manipulator. He was trained to do that. He was originally with the KGB, for those of you who don't know that. Now it's the security services, but he has a strategic mind, and he has no relationship with the truth. On that you can be certain. Another thing you can be certain is he has no love for the United States of America. And another thing you can be certain about is that he has an imperialistic mindset where he wants Russia to go and be. And for people who like Russia, that sounds like a good thing. But for the countries that border Russia, it's a disaster. There's cruelty in Russian leadership. And we've seen people in Ukraine be tortured. This is not to advocate for us to get more involved, but this is to say it involves you as the American people to stand up for someone in Kamala Harris who will continue the agenda of peace while also standing for humanitarian actions, but keep themselves at the table. And that's what Biden's been good at. Listen, he's been mad as hell at Netanyahu, madder than 40 hells at Netanyahu, for the way that he has handled this with seemingly no concern for innocents in Palestine. I will be back after the election, and I will be talking to you in the interim, probably not so often, about what may be able to be done based on a history of what's been happening in the Middle East. I will tell you that Kamala Harris has been involved and at the table in those decisions. She has already met with Netanyahu diplomatically behind closed doors. But in public, she has been very clear that we don't like the way they're handling humanitarian aid there. It has nothing to do with being anti-Israeli. We understand, but it is part of our heritage, our legacy in the world, to stand for human rights. And that needs to be very visible. It will be with Kamala Harris. It will not be with Donald Trump. The choice is very clear. So when you go to the voting booth, or if you already have, I hope you have voted for Harris Walz. And in North Carolina, Stein, Hunt, Jackson, all along the line, Democratic Party candidates, because they're going to care about you. They're caring about you, and they understand the connections between you and money. And they want it to be investing in a future that is bright and beautiful. This is Behind the Curtain, IMO. Thank you for being here.